You wake up and something feels quieter, not painful, not urgent, but different. Maybe it's been weeks, maybe months since your body felt fully awake in the mornings. Most men assume it's age, but what if it's not? What if your body still knows exactly what to do if you gave it the right nutrients? I'm Dr. Nolan. And today, I want to show you 5 everyday foods, small, ordinary nuts that can restore blood flow, balance your hormones, and help you feel like yourself again. Not younger, just more alive. It doesn't happen in one night. Most men don't wake up and suddenly feel different. It starts with something small in early morning that feels slower. A walk upstairs that needs a handrail, a glance in the mirror that doesn't hold the same energy as before. And so many men, especially after 60, begin to quietly adjust to it. They call it aging. They downplay it, joke about it, or keep it to themselves. But beneath that quiet resignation is something else entirely, a body that's still trying. Hormones that haven't given up, just slowed down. Blood vessels that are still willing to open but no longer have the same signals to do so. In fact, by the time a man reaches 65, his circulation has declined by nearly 20%. His testosterone by closer to 30%. And the responsiveness of his nervous system slows in ways that affect more than just movement. It changes identity. And that's where the emotional weight begins. For a man who once prided himself on being strong, being steady, being dependable, these small shifts feel like something is quietly slipping away. Some lose energy, others lose confidence. Many begin to distance themselves emotionally from their partners, not because they don't care, but because they fear being less than who they were. The question isn't just, how do I feel? It becomes, can I still show up the way I used to for myself, for her, for my life? What often gets missed is that these changes are not failures. They are feedback. And much of that feedback is tied to nourishment. As we age, the body's demand for certain nutrients increases, not decreases. Trace minerals, healthy fats, specific amino acids. These are the building blocks that allow the heart to pump strong, the blood vessels to stay open, the hormones to signal clearly. But in men over 60, these reserves are often depleted. So before you reach for a pill, or dismiss this stage as inevitable decline, let's consider something more grounded. What if your strength isn't gone, it's just underfed? What if something as small as one nut, eaten at the right time, could help awaken systems that were never broken, just waiting for you to notice? And more than anything, ask yourself this: have I been aging, or have I been starving parts of myself that still want to function? When a man starts to feel like something's fading, we often think it's a matter of strength or age, but sometimes it's something smaller, much smaller. One trace mineral barely the size of a grain of sand is often the missing link: selenium. Most men over 60 are running low on it without realizing it. By age 70, selenium levels in the average American male drop by nearly 30%. And when this mineral is low, the effects ripple through the entire system. Testosterone production stalls, energy dips, mental clarity dims, and vascular responsiveness, the ability of your blood vessels to widen and send blood where it's needed, begins to falter. Here's the good news: this isn't complicated to fix. The highest natural source of selenium, a Brazil nut. Just 1, sometimes 2 per day is all it takes. And within 3 weeks, I've seen men in my clinic report subtle but steady shifts. They start waking up feeling more alert, more capable, more like themselves. What makes selenium so essential is its role in testosterone synthesis and antioxidant protection. It helps reduce cellular damage in blood vessels and supports a molecule called glutathione, a natural detoxifier that protects the cells lining your arteries. When this protective layer functions well, blood flows more easily, with less friction, and with more responsiveness when you need it. It's not a stimulant. It's not a miracle. It's support, pure and simple. But this goes deeper than numbers on a blood panel. When a man begins to feel reconnected to his body, even in small ways, something softens inside. He stands taller, even if he doesn't notice. He might shave more regularly. Reach for his partner's hand instead of pulling away. It's the quiet return of vitality. I had a patient once, 73 years old, widowed, who told me, "I didn't know how far I drifted from myself until I started to come back. All he changed was his morning habit. One Brazil nut with coffee. Nothing fancy." And that's where the beauty lies. Aging doesn't always require force. Sometimes it just asks for precision. Ask yourself, what if I've been trying to fix myself with effort when what I needed was restoration? Most men don't realize their body is trying to heal while they sleep. Not just rest, but repair. Overnight, your blood vessels are recovering from the day's stress. Your hormones recalibrate, and your nervous system resets. But this only happens well if you give it the right nutrients before the lights go out. That's where walnuts come in. At first glance, they're just another nut, but they hold 3 properties that make them uniquely effective for men in their 60s and 70s. First, they're rich in L-arginine, which helps your body produce nitric oxide, a molecule essential for vascular flexibility. Second, they contain natural melatonin, which helps regulate your sleep cycles. And third, their omega-3 fatty acids reduce inflammation in the blood vessels, quietly improving circulation from the inside out. It's that combination circulation, rest, and repair that makes walnuts a powerful ally when eaten at night. Just 6 to 8 halves before bed can create a slow release of these compounds while you sleep. In men over 70, consistent nighttime L-arginine intake is associated with a 34% increase in spontaneous vascular response within 6 weeks. And men who improve their sleep cycles naturally see testosterone levels rise by morning. But this isn't just about numbers. It's about that small moment waking up and feeling something again. A sense of readiness, of being charged instead of drained. It's the shift from surviving your day to participating in it again. And often, this shift is first noticed not by the man himself, but by someone close. A partner might say, "You look more rested." A daughter might see him take the stairs without holding the rail. It's a return not to youth, but to presence. One man, age 75, said to me, "I don't know what's changed, Doc. I just feel more connected to myself again." He hadn't changed his exercise. He hadn't started new medication. He'd simply begun eating walnuts before bed. Sometimes healing doesn't happen in big, dramatic gestures. Sometimes it comes back in quiet ways overnight, even when the body is finally given what it's been asking for all along. And if you've been waking up feeling detached or foggy, it's worth asking, am I giving my nights the care they need to restore my mornings? When I look at lab panels from older men, Two things are almost always low and rarely discussed: magnesium and zinc. Not exotic, not trendy, but profoundly important. These are quiet minerals that form the core of what helps you feel steady, energized, and hormonally balanced. By the time a man turns 70, magnesium levels often fall below optimal by 40%. Zinc follows close behind, dipping in ways that disrupt testosterone, reduce mood stability, and increase inflammatory signals that stiffen arteries. But you don't need supplements. You need almonds. 10 to 12 raw or dry roasted almonds a day contain a steady dose of both minerals absorbed more naturally through food than pills. Magnesium supports vascular relaxation, improving how your arteries open when they're called upon. Zinc helps regulate testosterone and supports enzymes that protect the inner lining of your blood vessels. But beyond biology, there's something else that happens. Men tell me they feel more in their rhythm. They wake up clearer. Their hands don't tremble, reaching for the coffee cup. Their thoughts come easier. And perhaps most importantly, they stop avoiding things. Small tasks feel manageable again. They stop snapping at their spouses. They show up. I remember a patient, 68, divorced, living alone. "I didn't think food could fix me," he said. "But when I stopped skipping breakfast and added almonds, I wasn't as anxious. I was just okay again." We don't talk enough about how trace deficiencies affect mood. But in older adults, even mild zinc deficiency doubles the risk of depressive symptoms. Magnesium deficiency contributes to insomnia and irritability. These are things we tend to write off as part of aging, but they're not aging. They're signals. When you nourish yourself properly, the body doesn't just move better, it reacts better, emotionally, mentally, relationally. So before you assume you're becoming forgetful or irritable just because you're getting older, pause and ask, could I simply be undernourished in the places that help me stay grounded? Most men I see don't come in because of pain. They come in because something feels slower, sluggish legs, less endurance, more shortness of breath when climbing stairs. What they're describing, often without realizing it, is impaired circulation. And circulation is everything. Blood carries oxygen, nutrients, hormones. It is the delivery system for vitality. But if your vessels are inflamed, narrowed, or resistant, that delivery stalls. That's why we talk about pistachios. They're small, familiar, and quietly powerful, rich in L-arginine. Pistachios help your body produce more nitric oxide, a molecule that opens up blood vessels so blood can move freely. But they don't stop there. Pistachios also contain compounds that reduce C-reactive protein levels, a marker of chronic inflammation. In older adults who added 2 ounces daily, studies observed up to a 25% improvement in vascular responsiveness within 3 weeks. That means more oxygen reaching your brain, more blood reaching your limbs. And yes, better performance in moments that require presence, not hesitation. But this green snack has another layer of benefit. They stabilize blood sugar. With healthy fats, fiber, and protein, pistachios lower the glycemic impact of a meal, preventing the sharp glucose spikes that lead to crashes, cravings, and long-term vessel damage, especially at night. When many older adults face sugar cravings or restless sleep, pistachios can help quiet the system without raising blood sugar. One widowed gentleman I treated, 74 years old, said he began eating pistachios in the late afternoon instead of crackers. "I didn't think it'd matter," he said, "but I started sleeping deeper and waking up lighter." What you feed yourself during those small moments, midday snacks, late night hunger, matters more than you think. Your body is still listening, still adapting. If your energy dips in the afternoon, or if you feel less clear after meals, it may not be your age. It may be the inflammation speaking. So ask yourself, what if this tiredness isn't aging at all, but the result of 1,000 small clogs I never noticed building up? Somewhere in their early 60s, many men start to fear food. Not hunger, but fat. The quiet fear that eating something rich will build the wrong kind of weight around the belly, the chest, the face. And so they begin to cut back on oils, on snacks, sometimes even on meals. But there's a kind of fat the body doesn't store. It uses monounsaturated fat found in olives, avocados, and macadamia nuts. Macadamias are smooth, dense, and surprisingly powerful. They lower LDL, the bad cholesterol that thickens your arteries, and raise HDL, the type that helps clean them out. For men over 65, diets with sufficient monounsaturated fats reduce vessel stiffness and improve testosterone balance without pushing body weight upward. That's because your hormones are made from fat, not the greasy kind, but the structured, anti-inflammatory kind, and without enough of it. Testosterone production dips, cortisol rises, and energy turns to fog. Macadamias give the body the materials it needs to rebuild, not bulk. A small handful a day, 5 or 6 nuts, is enough. They digest slowly, stabilize blood sugar, and help prevent those 9 p.m. cravings that sabotage so many older men living alone. I once asked a man in his 70s why he finally added macadamias to his daily routine. He said, "Because I was tired of going to bed full but still feeling empty." That stayed with me. These nuts aren't a trick. They're fuel. They support the vessels that feed your brain, the glands that regulate your hormones, and the rhythms that tell your body when to rest and when to rise. And if weight is a concern, here's what you need to know when your hormones stabilize. Your body doesn't fight you. It stops clinging to calories and starts trusting again. So instead of asking, "Will this make me gain weight?" try asking, "Is this giving me what I need to feel steady, responsive, and alive?" We often talk about hormones and blood sugar as two separate systems, but they're not. After 60, they begin to speak the same language, and when they fall out of sync, the consequences show up in ways you don't expect. That late night craving, the one that pulls you toward the cupboard after 9 p.m., it's often not hunger, it's dysregulation. As insulin sensitivity declines with age by up to 25% in men over 70, the body struggles to clear sugar efficiently. Glucose lingers, spikes become sharper, and energy crashes harder. What follows is a chain reaction. Cortisol increases, testosterone dips, and sleep suffers. And the next day, you feel foggy, irritable, disconnected. But here's the quiet link many overlook when blood sugar is unstable. Your hormones lose their rhythm. Testosterone production relies on stable insulin signaling. And for older women, especially those post-menopause, those swings affect mood, memory, and even bone density. One solution, humble but powerful, is to retrain the body with consistent, fat-rich, low-sugar inputs, a handful of almonds, a few macadamias, Even pistachios. These nuts slow down sugar absorption, buffer insulin release, and reduce the metabolic chaos that causes hormonal confusion. I've seen this most clearly in widowed men and women, those eating alone, skipping meals, and compensating with quick carbs late at night. They tell me, I sleep, but I don't feel rested. Or, I eat, but I'm still craving something. What they're really saying is, I'm out of rhythm. Rhythm is biological. When you eat affects how your hormones release. When you stabilize sugar, your body remembers what it's supposed to do. And here's something simple. Replace the nightly snack that leaves you wired with one that supports recovery. A handful of pistachios or walnuts before bed. Nothing fancy. Just consistent. For women, especially those facing the emotional shifts of postmenopause or the hidden fatigue that comes from years of giving this matters deeply. Because even a small improvement in glucose regulation can restore emotional steadiness, preserve bone health, and calm the nervous system. So if you've ever caught yourself standing in front of the fridge at 10 p.m., ask yourself, is this hunger? Or is it my body asking for balance it forgot how to find? We often speak of aging as a male journey of decline, of strength lost, of function fading. But she feels it too, the woman beside you, or the one you remember, or the daughter who visits more now, sensing changes she doesn't name. Aging touches everyone in the room, even when the conversation is silent. For women in their 60s and 70s, the story often begins with hormone withdrawal. Estrogen falls, bone density drops, emotional steadiness becomes harder to find. Many wake up at 3 a.m. with no reason. Others feel a kind of invisible thinning, not just of skin, but of presence. What helps them often overlaps with what helps you. Almonds, for example, improve magnesium intake, which softens cortisol's grip at night. Magnesium deficiency, common in women postmenopause, is linked not just to insomnia, but also to loss of bone mineral density. Add to that the quiet loss of vitamin E and zinc, and you begin to see why emotional weight and fatigue become more common in women after 65. I remember a woman named Teresa, 74, who started eating 10 almonds before bed instead of toast. Within a month, she told me, I don't fall apart at noon anymore. She wasn't just talking about blood sugar. She meant her nerves, her balance, her feeling of being centered. These nutrients don't act like medication. They don't fix you. They support you. They reduce the inflammation that creeps in around the joints, the nerves, the vascular system, and they rebuild the rhythm of a body that has been through decades of caretaking, of sacrifice, of silence. And what's striking is how many older women feel the same shame men do, but express it differently. They don't talk about energy loss or confidence. They say things like, I'm not useful anymore, or my memory is embarrassing. But much of this isn't emotional at all, it's biological depletion. Just as men need circulation to feel awake, women need nourishment to feel anchored. And when both receive the right input, something beautiful happens. Steadiness returns. Presence returns. Conversations flow again over morning coffee. So if you're watching this for yourself, but she's sitting beside you, ask yourself, is she slipping too quietly, without saying a word? And am I brave enough to share this path with her? His name was Clarence, 82. Walked into my clinic wearing a clean button-down and the kind of stillness that comes from surviving things. He wasn't looking for youth. He wasn't chasing lost time. He just said, "Doc, I want to walk downstairs without holding the rail." That's when I realized something. At a certain age, vitality stops being about ambition. It becomes about presence, about steadiness, about not being afraid of the mornings. Clarence didn't want prescriptions. He wanted a plan he could live with. We talked about what he ate when he slept, how often he laughed. His mornings were coffee and silence, his afternoons often television, and his dinners light, but empty. No nuts, no real protein. Sleep was light. Memory, even lighter. We started small. 1 Brazil nut with breakfast, a few walnuts before bed, 10 almonds at 2 p.m. instead of crackers. That was it. Within 4 weeks, he didn't just walk in more upright. He looked me in the eye. "I feel like I'm back inside myself again," he said. "Not stronger, not younger, just more here." What changed? The vascular support from selenium, the L-arginine for his blood vessels, the magnesium to calm his nerves. His blood pressure improved, his sleep deepened, and his daughter told me, "He's calling more, telling stories again." This is what most people don't understand about men in their 80s. They're not asking to run marathons. They're asking to be included, to feel dignity in their steps, to stand without fear, to sit at the table and contribute. Nutrition matters here, not just for function, but for identity. At 80, the wrong kind of fat can stiffen arteries. But the right kind, the kind in macadamias, helps reduce inflammation and allows blood to flow again. And with flow comes clarity, confidence, the return of small routines that give life its texture. I once asked Clarence what made the biggest difference. He didn't say a number. He didn't say a feeling. He said, "I started caring again." And maybe that's the question worth asking yourself today. Am I giving my body enough reason to care again? It wasn't a lab result or a medical test that told me something had shifted. It was a phone call from a daughter. Her father, 77, had been living alone since his wife passed. He wasn't sick, just slower, quiet. Meals had become simpler. Sleep more shallow. His energy, she said, had become thin. She'd bought him a tin of mixed nuts a month earlier, almonds, pistachios, walnuts. Told him, "Try these instead of toast. No pressure, just a suggestion." 3 weeks later, she called me. "He's humming again." She said, at breakfast, "He's humming." That's how change shows up sometimes. Not in the mirror, not in the scale, but in the mood that returns when the body starts to feel supported again. These nutrients, magnesium, selenium, healthy fats don't act like stimulants. They don't force change. They invite it. They remind the system of its own rhythm. They don't just feed muscles or hormones, they restore presence. And when that presence returns, the people around you notice first. The wife who smiles more during the walk. The son who lingers on the phone. The daughter who quietly tears up at breakfast, hearing her father hum a song from 40 years ago. That's the medicine no pill can give. And it's why this work matters. Because vitality isn't always about what you feel, it's about what others feel when you show up. So ask yourself, gently, is someone in my life waiting to see a version of me I haven't been in a while? Sometimes all it takes is a quiet ritual, a few almonds, a bit of walnuts, a decision to nourish instead of numb, The body still knows what to do. Sometimes it just needs to be reminded. You don't need to overhaul your life. You don't need to chase your youth. What your body wants now isn't more pressure. It's quiet support. A Brazil nut in the morning. A few walnuts at night. Almonds when you feel a little off balance. These are not cures. They are care. And when you care for your body in small, consistent ways, something begins to shift. Blood flows more freely. Sleep returns more deeply. Confidence rises not with force, but with steadiness. You begin to take your place again in your own life. If this made you reflect today, let someone else feel that too. Share it. Sometimes a simple truth passed along becomes someone else's turning point. And if you're ready to go a little deeper, join me next time. We'll talk about the private wellness mistakes most men over 60 don't realize they're making until it's too late. Mistakes that steal your energy, your clarity, and your connection. Let's keep going. Your body is still listening. And it's not too late to listen back.